Hello? Oh, there's nobody here yet. Hi, everyone. Hi, friends. There you are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shelly Moore Q&A. Q&A. Hey, Debbie. It's like I just saw you. Bethany, Leanna. Basically, we're just doing book club again, I see. So good. Hi, everybody. Hi, Ava. Bethany. It's my regs. Totally good. Here we are. Surprise! It's a bonus live. Look out. Here we go. Hello, friends. Nice to see you. Hey. Okay, I'm going to do it. Huguenin. Alberta. I'm out of bed. Good for you. You know what I did in the last hour since book club? Me and Jessica went to go plan Scotland. I was in Scotland last year. I love Scotland. You forgot about the Q&A. It's Q&A. In the hour since book club, me and Jessica have tried to plant. We did up a seed plan so that we're going to go plant our seeds after this into our new garden box. Yeah. Scotland is in the house. We got Alberta. Oh, Scotland, Ontario. I didn't even know there was a Scotland in Ontario. Oh, man. I haven't been to that one. I mean, I've been to Ontario, but I mean, it's no Edinburgh. I didn't even know. Did you guys know there was a Scotland in Ontario? Welcome, Scotland, Ontario. Oh, friends, good to see you. So if you're just joining, this is our weekly Saturday Q&A, which is connected to the 5 More Minutes home learning tips. And so we're doing a little series right now on visuals. And so on Tuesday we did about no idea. See? Who knew? We did a little what are visuals? Why are they good? And now we're going to break down 3 different strategies. So we did visual schedules on Thursday. We're going to do first then on Tuesday. And then we're going to do choices on next Thursday. Because I figure if you got visuals set up in the house, things are going to go easier on you. I do have 2 questions that came in. So I'm going to start with those today. But if you have other questions, just type them in the comment box. And we will answer them the best that we can. You know how I feel about visuals, though. I love them. See, make visuals for when kids come back. Honestly, they're so good. Now, I got 3, kind of 2.5 questions. One was more of a comment. The first one I got was actually a YouTube comment, and it started off like this, all caps. So this person was yelling, I hate visuals. I hate them. And so this person, whose name I don't remember, had a rant about visuals and how they're all over the school, the little laminated squares and Velcro, they're all over the place and they're not used. And I understand that. I've been there. I have been in the place where there are visuals that look like your classroom vomited visuals. I get it. I've been there. But here's the thing I need to remind us, okay? I hate writing. I hate it. But I have to do it because that is how many people understand and how many people communicate. So I understand if you hate visuals, but taking away visuals is like taking away someone's voice. Okay, so many of the students that we work with, they rely on visuals as much as we rely on speech. And as much as many people rely on writing, okay? So I know sometimes we hate them, but we got to use them. And a lot of people don't use them because they hate them, but that's like taking someone's voice away, right? We need them. Now, I do understand, though, that sometimes visuals aren't used in ways that honor voices, and this became the second question. The second question was, how do we use visuals in a way that aren't so reliant on behaviorism? And what I mean by that is, if you remember when we learn, see, Socrates didn't write things down, right? Exactly. is behaviorism is very much like, when I think of behaviorism, it's very much like dog training, right? So like, do this, get this, do this, and you don't want it, then you get a punishment. Like, it's very much punishment and rewards. And we talked about this in the video, but it's very, very easy to fall into this trap for visuals, okay? Now, visuals, it's very easy to use them. I call them compliance traps, which is basically, what do you want someone to do? And then you make visuals to get them to do it, and then you reward them at the end, okay? Now, it's very easy to fall into that trap, right? And Jody talked about this, right? She says, if you give someone a big enough carrot, they'll do anything, right? But that's not necessarily the goal. I say compliance is never the goal, ever. And so people always need to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so one way to counteract kind of the behaviorist lens on visuals is to think of it a little bit more like a constructive lens. And what that means is, whenever you're using visuals, especially with visual schedules, well, for anything, is we need to bring in an element of choice and an element of co-construction. Maggie, a wonderful OT I worked with taught me how important these visuals are for regulation. It's like we look at a clock. Totally. And it increases engagement, it increases understanding, it increases, it's so important, okay? But what I see a lot of the time are people being like, here, this is what you need to do today. Do it or else. Like, there's no room, right? There's no voice of the individual. And so one way to make sure that we're not compliance-based is to build the schedule with the person, okay? Which means that there needs to be an element of choice, and there needs to be an element of flexibility, and even more so, if they're a part of actually creating the visuals and creating the schedule, there's going to be more buy-in, right? Maggie's absolutely right. Like, it's a reference. Like, it's something that we can look at that's independent. Like, we wear our watches or our clocks or our phones. We look at it, right? Because we need that reference point. This is exactly what visuals are. Like, a clock is a visual, all right? So when we're talking about constructing it together, this is what I mean, okay? So I talked about this in the video about brushing teeth. So one way that I could do it is I could make a script of how to brush teeth. I could make visuals and break down the steps to how to brush teeth. And then I could show them to an individual and say, here are the steps for you to brush your teeth. That's one way, and that's often the way that people use visuals. I am more about this way. With the person I'm working with, I'd be like, we need to figure out how to brush our teeth. What do you think we need to do first? Like, we actually construct the routine together. I'd be like, do we need the toothpaste first or the toothbrush first? What makes sense, right? And they'll be like, okay, the toothbrush. I'm like, okay, let's take a picture of this so we can remember. Like, you actually construct it with them. And I'd be like, okay, so now we got the toothbrush. What do we need to do next, right? And if they're not sure, you can be like, okay, give them a choice. Do I put toothpaste on the toothbrush? Or do I put toothpaste directly on my teeth? Right? Like, you can make it funny. And you can co-construct it with them to be like, okay, I think you put it on the brush. And kids can point this way. They can gesture this way. And then we're like, okay, we got to remember that. How are we going to remember it? We're going to take a picture, right? Like, the whole building of the schedule, that's us teaching them, right? And then the visuals just become a reference, not the actual tool itself to teach, okay? Because if we're just telling kids what to do, they're not going to buy in. That's compliance. But if we're talking about, like, why do we need to brush our teeth? Why do you think that's important, right? Why don't we go watch a YouTube video about it? Why don't we read a book about it so that they understand the buy-in, but then also be like, we need to figure out how we're going to remember this. And so building that together. There was a little guy that I worked with who got really distracted. And so we were trying to figure out how to build a strategy together. So his name was Josh. And I'm like, okay, Joshua, we need to figure out how to not be distracted. Now, I need this support as much as he did, right? He was in grade 2. And I was like, okay, Joshua, let's figure this out. So what are you thinking about when you're distracted? He's like, oh, Mr. Potato Head, Roly-Poly, Thomas the Train. I'm like, that sounds like so much more entertaining than a lot of things. He's like, I know, it's so hard. So we're like, what can we do to, like, help our brain to remember that we can think about those things later on, but maybe somehow, like, figure out how we can like pause our thinking about Thomas the Train, and then we can think about him later. And he's like, So we walked around the classroom, and he's like, ooh, I got it. I'm like, tell me. He goes, we should get a box. I'm like, that's a great idea. He's like, let's get a box. And when I think about Thomas the Train roly-poly, I will put my thoughts in the box, and I'll put the lid on, and then I'll tell myself that it's time for them to come out later. I'm like, okay, but how are we going to remember this? He's like, we should get pictures. So, like, we built the whole schedule. We built the whole teaching tool strategy together. We went on the internet. We took pictures of all the things that he gets distracted by. And whenever he caught himself thinking about them, he physically put those pictures in a box on his desk. And he goes, I'm putting my mind on stop. But it was like the reminder to be like, he needed that visual, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can do this, but I can take them out of the box later when I can think about them. That was so much more meaningful to him than me just giving him a visual that said, pay attention, right? Because it was a strategy that he needed. That example is actually in the book, Developing Self-Regulating Learners, with Deb Butler and Leighton Schneller. Right? Exactly. Take the lead, discover the need. And so that co-construction is what makes it non-compliance based, right? Like, we both realize, because I talked to him just like, you know, I see you're really frustrated. Like, show me your frustrated face so we know what this looks like and what this feels like. And he showed me, he goes like this, he's like, it was so cute, right? That co-construction. And so we become the facilitators helping kids to develop the strategies. And kids don't need to be speaking to do this, right? I think of everything as a multiple choice test. So if I need them to give me an option, I give them a choice of two. Like the toothbrush, right? Do I need a toothbrush to brush my teeth, or do I need a hairbrush to brush my teeth, right? And whatever they choose, like getting them involved. And I realized this very early in my career because I was at school at like 9 o'clock at night building all these sequences and social stories and visuals. And then one day I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't need to learn this. My kids do. And so that actually became our lessons. We're just like, we need to stop slamming the doors. So instead of me making a visual to get kids to stop slamming the doors, we are going to figure out why it's not good to slam the doors and come up with a solution together, okay? So visuals can be very, very powerful, but this person had a really good point. She's like, how do we make them so they're not just compliance-based? And that is how we make them not compliance-based. We bring the kids involved in the process of creating the visuals, about coming up with the strategies, the schedules for the visuals, but also, and someone said it in here, the actual visuals that we use can be around their interests, right? Like, you can have a schedule of Thomas the Tank Engine. You can have a schedule of whatever you want. Cows, kites, lemons, I don't care. Whatever. But getting the kids to buy in is not just the interest, it's also like helping them to think through the process and getting them a part of the process. That is the teaching. That was huge, because then I could actually go home at a decent time, because I realized that I was figuring out the teaching rather than doing it with them. So that's the difference. Not compliance-based, but co-constructed. We build it together. The potatoes, absolutely. I had to come straight out with my autistic student after a couple of video meetings. I asked him if he was okay not to smile when he comes on, because I told him it looked like it hurt. He hasn't smiled since, but only in the natural moments is what I live for. Oh no, totally, right? What do we expect? What do kids think we expect? Like, all of those things we're building together. So good. Hi, Shauna. Okay, the third question that I got was also a really good question. It was just like, yeah, but Shelly, what about if kids hate visuals? What if they're a trigger? Like, so there was this one student who was just like, whenever they see a visual, it's a trigger and they rip it and they throw it. So what this is telling me is that visuals haven't been used in the way that honors the student, right? Like, if someone was just using visuals to tell me what to do, I would probably also grab the visuals and throw them across the room, right? And so when this happens, I think we go back to the helping kids to know why we need visuals, helping them to be a part of the process to build visuals. But here's the other thing. This is called sneaky teaching. If you have a kid who needs a reference, and that can be words, pictures, symbols, it doesn't matter. but you know that they don't want them for something. Maybe they don't want to look different. Maybe they think they look babyish for whatever reason. Okay, this is what you do. You give them to the whole class. If there is one kid that needs visuals in a classroom, those visuals are for everybody to see. And so this is a destigmatizing process that's really, really useful for any support. If there's a student that you know needs a support, maybe a lap desk, or maybe a wobble stool, or a sensory tool, or anything, doesn't matter, a calculator, special pencil grips, if they need to take a break, it does not matter what the support or the tool is. If one kid is not wanting to use it, and you know they really need it, you teach that to everybody. It's called sneaky universal design. So that you can be like, you know what, I have a kid in here that's really going to benefit from taking a break, but they don't want to look different. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach everyone how to take a break. It's going to destigmatize it, and then kids can start helping each other. We have a student who throws her talking board quite often. I think it's because we are missing something on there that she needs that's missing. It's very possible. It's very, very possible. Yeah, no, totally. Because when you teach it to everyone, people are just like, hey, maybe we need a break. Maybe we should take a break. Like, they start helping to co-regulate each other. And exactly, kids they don't even think are going to need the break are going to benefit from the break. Okay? So those are kind of like big ones. If kids are saying like no way to the visuals, it's probably because they don't want to be stigmatized. There's something missing, or something like maybe like the actual visual they don't understand. It needs to be broken down more. It's possible that the visual is too complex, because like if you only use symbols, they're quite vague. And so if a kid is kind of stuck, or they're having some behavior around a visual, that might be because they need a more concrete example. So maybe a photo of them, or it could be an object. So changing the type of visual might help. But I'm going to tell you, the number one strategy to get kids to buy in is co-construction. I'm not even kidding you. Moving it away from compliance so the kids have a say. And so one of our strategies are going to be around choice, like how to use visuals as a choice. I worked with a kid who wouldn't let me help him until he'd seen me help 3 or 4 other kids. That's exactly it. Which is why there's like a really huge shift to have educational assistants not attached to certain kids, but attached to classrooms, so that it's like, rather than like a classroom teacher being like, oh, I'll take these 29 kids and you take those 4 kids over there, divide and conquer. It's more just like, okay, we have a teacher, we have an educational assistant. Together, we're going to work to support everybody. It destigmatizes the process, but yeah, no, Leanna, honestly, co-construction changed my life. It causes the buy-in. You can do this with the whole class. That's why people really like co-constructed criteria for evidence, right? Like if kids are a part of building in the criteria for their student work, they understand it more, right? You mentioned about slamming doors. What if they know why they should slam the doors, but at the moment they are not able to control their body? Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that if it's something, like if it's something that they're not in control of, that's different, but then it's about how do you move them away from the doors, right? But if it's something, often kids like the sensory of doors. So when I was working, this is actually an example on my website, Learn Some More. There was a little guy. He would walk down the hallway and slam all the doors as he was walking. He wasn't being bad. He just loved the noise and the echo that it caused in the hallways. And so we tried the don't slam the door or just keep walking, but he just loved it. And so what we did instead was we walked him down the hallway and we got him to take pictures of the classrooms. And I'm just like, so instead of slamming the door, I want you to go see what's happening in the classrooms, and I want you to listen. Like, is it loud in there or is it quiet in there? And I warned all the classes, and I'm like, this guy's coming around. He's coming to check out what's happening in your classes, because I don't think he's realizing the effects of slamming a door on a quiet class. So we took him around. He was in high school. And we're like, let's take pictures of all these classes. And then we asked him, is it quiet in there or is it loud in there? And sometimes it was loud, right? And we're just like, what do you think happens to those quiet classrooms when you slam the door? And he's just like, loud. And we're like, yeah. So now let's think about those other kids. If they're really trying to focus, it would be really hard if they heard that loud noise, right? And so we're like, what can we do? And you know what he pointed to? He pointed to the option, can we ask the teachers to close their doors? Done. done, right? And so it was less about us telling him to stop closing doors, but more about helping him to understand why that might be disturbing to other people. And so then we went around and asked all the teachers to close their door after they start class. They keep it unlocked. No problem. Problem done. But it was so both of those situations would use visuals, but the second way, he was actually a part of the solution, as opposed to me just telling him to stop slamming doors, right? And so that's the difference. Visuals can be used in either way, but I'm a huge component of getting the voice of the kid involved. And there's never a kid I've worked with who can't have a voice, okay? Whether they're talking with their eyes, talking with their gestures, or talking with their words, right? So it's, sometimes we might have to give them the option, but getting them to be a part of the teaching and the process, that's where you're going to see the behavior change. Because as what's our friend Barry Present says, you have to know the why. If we don't know the why, it's about compliance. Compliance is never the goal. Darcy, as an atypical learner who can manage in classrooms, I've always appreciated putting supports out to the whole class. Enabling all learners to access supports is so great. Honestly, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. There's a workshop that I do that's around building classroom support plans, where you design them for specific kids in mind, but you teach them to as many kids as possible, even if they don't need them. Because here's the thing, if kids don't need supports, they just don't use them, right? Like, it's not harmful to anybody. Ross Green lost at school. Everyone does the best they can. If kids are having challenging behavior, it's because that's the best option. So we need to create some other options, right? No matter the kid. Absolutely. Oh, I love you guys. So those are my 3 questions. I hate visuals. We can't hate them. That's like saying in education, I don't like when kids talk. Maybe not the profession for you. Right? No. We can't hate visuals. We can't. End of conversation. You can hate that they're unorganized. You can hate that maybe they don't get used, but yeah, no, we got to go through it. We got to go through them and be like, you know what? Let's put these aside. It sounds like you hate the disorganization of visuals, but we have to use them. And honestly, it's the number one support that's not used in schools. It's the first thing I say when I see a kid that's having a hard time. I'm like, where are the visuals? They're like, he doesn't need them. I'm like, no one doesn't need visuals. Get out the visuals. Honestly, they're so underused. We can't underuse them. But we also have to teach them. We can't just show kids the visuals. Oh, I could go on and on and on and on and on. Okay, are there any other questions before we wrap up? Coming from you? I like you guys. Oh my God, many of you showed up today. You're amazing. So, the next video that comes out on Tuesday after this, I hate being asked to create visuals for compliance. No, don't do it, Darcy. Just tell the people, yeah, okay, but then change, just do you do you. You do you, and you say this. You're just like, yeah, okay, great. And then you just get the kid involved. I think I said this in the video. Like, I have like a Olympus camera that looks fancy, and so the kids that I worked with always know, Miss Moore brought her fancy camera today, we're learning a new skill. Because they knew that when the fancy camera came out, they knew that they were getting involved. Oh yeah, someone asked me this. How do we get parents to involve their child in the IEP process? That's a good question because they haven't been involved for such a long time. And so, there's a couple of answers. If you start with the little guys, just bring them, right? Just bring them. Even if kids, like, this is that presuming competence thing. Even if you think kids aren't getting anything out of it, well, you don't know. You don't know if they are or they aren't. And they definitely won't if they're not there, right? But even little things like you can make IEP meetings about like a show and tell and get kids to show the things that they're proud of, right? Things like this. But I think the same thing. We need to normalize this as much as possible. Just be like, this is just a plan. Nothing to hide. One thing that I really noticed, and BC has kind of moved to this, we moved to a competency-based IEP, and one thing that really, really helped destigmatize them for parents is we took all of the confidential information off of them. So confidential information is still available in the student system, but the actual IEP document is not confidential because it's the student document. Like, the student needs to see it, the EA needs to see it. It can't be something that we fear. It can't be something that's under lock and key. And that really helped parents to kind of just like relax a little bit. The other thing about helping kids to know that they have an IEP, I think this is so sad when kids don't know they have an IEP. I think it's really, really sad. I didn't know that I had an IEP until I was 25. And I'm like, if I had known that, it would have been so much easier to advocate for myself or to understand why I was having a hard time. I just thought I was broken. I didn't know why I was having a hard time in school. And so, yeah, no, EAs need to see it 100%. And so I think that helping kids to know that they need support in certain areas is not something to fear. I don't think it's something to fear at all. I do understand, though, that a lot of parents fear the label, which is why I really, really love the whole direction that the disability community has gone into to consider disability an identity. So, like, not telling a kid that they have autism is like not telling someone they're a person of color. Right? You know what I mean? Like, it's a part of who you are. It's an identity trait. And so, you know, as soon as we know that a kid has autism, this is something that we want to celebrate. In the same way, like, if a kid comes out queer, that's not something we want to suppress. We'd be like, that's great. Like, let's celebrate that identity of who you are. It's the same, you know what I mean? Like, we do that for so many things, but if someone considers it not an identity trait and they need to hush it, that brings shame to an individual. And I think that the disability community has really been like, no, I'm disabled, and that's okay. It's who I am. Let's celebrate it, you know? And so this whole, like, identity of disability, I think that us in school really need to harness that and just be like, yes, you have a learning disability. How unique. Like, so what that means is you'll need support in this area, just like other kids need support in this area. And so how we respond to labels and IEPs is what kids are going to start to pick up on, right? SNL skit about a blind KKK member being, right? No, like, identity is huge. Who do you want to identify with? And so, I don't know. I think that I've really, really learned about that. My kids have IEPs, and they have always been involved. She used it this year in grade 10 when this teacher gave the class assignments, and she was struggling. She completed advocated for herself. This is it. Kids cannot advocate for themselves unless they know A, what their needs are, and B, what supports they need to meet their needs. And that is an IEP document. What are your needs and what supports, tools, and strategies you need to meet those goals, right? Like, that's exactly it. The dream of IEPs is that kids write their own one day, right? I found out that I have ADHD in university. It changed my life. Made so much sense. It wasn't kept for me. I just wasn't tested. Yeah, this is the other thing, too, is that a lot of people don't even realize that there was an opportunity to understand. See, like, labels can be useful, right? To be like, hey, like, oh my goodness, when I realized, I remember the moment I realized I was gay, and I was terrified, but I was also super relieved, because then there was an actual explanation for my behavior. I was just like, oh, that's what's going on, right? So, I mean, there is a power in the label, but it's how it's used that can be really problematic, right? So this is what I say. Tell the kids they have IEPs. Tell them they have IEPs. Parents, if you're out there and your kid has autism, tell them they have autism. It's something to be celebrated. You find a whole bunch of heroes in the world that have autism and just be like, you are like them, how lucky. Oh, you're so lucky, right? There's a whole chapter in my new book about identity that is, that's really, I think, really, really important in schools right now, is like helping kids to figure out who they are. Because I'll tell you, school is safe for a lot of, like, straight white dead men, and it needs to be more safe for more kids. A boy I work with in grade 12 is struggling right now with mental health and feeling overwhelmed. He has been emailing me and said he would reach out to his teachers. See, totally, it's okay to reach out. That is a message that not allowed people feel. Yeah, no, Catherine, that's great. It means you're a safe person in a safe place. So kudos to you. Oh man, I love how these chats just go totally like, we're here, we're on track, and then whoop! But they're always good conversations. That's why I love you guys. I love you guys. Okay, friends. So we're talking visuals, we're talking about co-construction, we're talking about getting the kids involved, we're talking about getting the kids, like, proud of who they are and being okay that they need support, right? No, Temple, Grandin. So fun. Thank you, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. This is our, like, half hour. It goes so fast. I'm recording this, so I'm going to post it on our YouTube channel, so if you want to share this with anyone, you can. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching the videos. If you haven't, go see them. They're all on the YouTube channel. If you want to join our book club, we meet every morning at 9, Tuesday to Saturday. We are reading Potlatch's Pedagogy, and on Tuesday morning, Sarah Davidson is actually joining with us live on Instagram. All of those will be archived if you want. But we're here for you. There's a new, like, some fun thing every morning. See, I'm going to be honest, these little live chats get me out of bed. Otherwise, I would go into, like, depression napping. You guys, thanks so much for joining me. You're amazing. Stay tuned. There's a new video on Tuesday. You're the best. You're the best. Go have a great long weekend. I love you. I love you. Have a good weekend, you guys. I'll see you soon.